Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Ingrid Hanson Popp, an author, speaker, and caregiver who advocates for families and helps families navigate one of the life's most emotional and often overlooked journey caring for aging parents. After working alongside her mother through her final years and later supporting her in laws through a difficult caregiving experience, Ingrid realized that so many people were facing this season without guidance or support. That inspired her to write Becoming an Orphan, the caregiver's guide to lovingly letting our parents go, offering practical wisdom encouragement, and hope to caregivers learning how to love, let go, and continue living life with purpose. Ingrid, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Sekani. And I know the title of that book is a mouthful, but every word, when you become an author, every word is there for a reason.
Wow, right. Ooh, okay, so yes, Ingrid, I want you to take us back to your 20s, basically, right?
Okay.
So, what was life like during that phase of your life, and what dreams were driving you then?
Hmm. Okay. So, as you know, my father died suddenly, when I was 15 years old. And when I say suddenly, I kissed him goodbye, went to school, and got called home from school, and he died of a heart attack. Gone. Yeah, a little bit shocked. So, um, what that began, I was the youngest of three, and I was the last one at home. So, the other part of that picture is that my dad was a dairy farmer, and so our family were farmers. And when you live on a farm like that, we didn't hire help. We ran it ourselves. You, it's a different kind of lifestyle. You're very close. Because you work together, you watch the weather together, you do chores together. And so, at any rate, so dad died, and I call it the season after that was mom and me against the world because we were the only ones home. And even though we didn't do grieving together per se, on the other hand, we did. Say, for example, I think the funeral and all was on I don't know, a Thursday during the school year. And that Sunday, Mom and I were in church. Church was our center of our week, Christian church, and we were there and we were trying to sing together praises to God, and it wasn't easy. But the church was very much a support system. Anyway, so that was Mom and me against the world kind of era where we just had to keep navigating, okay, what is living like with Dad not here? And she was busy with a lot of uh, selling equipment of the farm and legal things and things like that. And I was still just going to school and whatever. And um, then she began dating, which was totally moral in my head that fit, but emotionally, I couldn't handle it. I was just like, okay, that's just too weird. She would tell me where she was going and approximately when she'd come home. She dated Christian men, good men, you know, uh, whatever. She didn't just like disappear. But in emotionally, I just couldn't handle it. I knew it was fine for her to date, but emotionally, especially losing your dad at 15 years old, I was already a little bit stunted, if I could say it that way, just emotionally and relationally. And so when she announced to me, this is so poignant. Oh my gosh, it's so poignant. So she was dating a man from our church. Like I said, a Christian man, was a widower. And I think she knew I wasn't too keen on her getting remarried. None of us kids were because we felt like she was rushing. But in our family, relationally, we didn't talk about this stuff. We talked about it with each other, like my siblings and I, but we didn't know how to do confrontational chats. So I was going to go visit some friends in college. Must have been, was I 20, 21, something like that. I was going to go out of town with some friends to visit another friend at college. And I was on my way out the door, had my stuff packed, and mom said, "By the way, Ken and I are getting married." I'm like, "Uh-huh. Bye, gotta go." And it's like a snapshot of what was happening relationally as well. Is bye, I'm gonna go now. And at that moment, it was a distinct turning towards, okay, Ingrid is now on her own. I mean, I live under mom's roof and, whatever, but I'm on my own. And independence runs strong in my family and personalities in our family to start with. And that just sort of launched me into I'm on my own. And I had great friends. I continued on with the church. I was respectful of my mother, but boy, did I keep her at a distance. I just couldn't go there. And I think I'm kind of maybe getting ahead of our chat, but one of the things I regret now is that I also kept her new husband, Ken, at a distance. He was very kind. He was very good to my mom, very sensitive. And he never ever tried to like, I'm going to replace your dad. That just wasn't a thing, you know? He just wanted to be supportive. He came to all my big life events like graduating college, things like that. And again, still relationally, I kept him at bay and they enjoyed like 30 more years, almost 30 years together. She had 30 years with my dad and 30 years with Ken. It was like, wow. And I regret that when I look back at photographs, um, because it wasn't Ken's fault. He was a good man. And so yeah, so that's what that was. That was kind of the relational um, scene in my 20s. I had great friends. I had great a college group at our church. We met weekly. Those close friends were really my lifeline, and they were friends that I could talk with about anything, which I think was really supportive. And I don't know if at this stage in our world and with technology, if our 20 somethings have friendships like that. This is pre-internet, pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram. This was all telephone or in person.
Wow. Oh, all right. So, Ingrid, I want to say thank you for sharing your story with us, right? I really do appreciate that. And wow, okay. So, you said you wouldn't blame Ken. Neither would I, actually. I don't know if I can say
Right,
this.
poor guy.
No, I mean, he's just he's doing the best he can, basically. And
Yeah.
also, I don't know if I could also blame your mom, right? I don't know if I
No,
can say this, right? You
no.
know,
And I
I
and it
don't,
was that it perfectly illustrated that our family, we just didn't have, both my mom and dad were what I call people persons. I mean, they loved people. They both loved to talk. I mean, that's where I get this one doing podcasts. And but that we all kind of rate low on the relational skills. So, yeah.
oh, okay, so all
And
right,
maybe
so
I
like you
maybe I
said,
should say there was a moment, again, we can come back to it as well, but there was a moment after Ken died, and my mom was alone again for, I don't know, it must have been about maybe 5 years or so. And there was a moment when she and I could reconcile. I'll tell you in short form. She and I were on a trip visiting Alaska. It was one of her dreams, and I was able to help her enjoy it. You know, we had a wheelchair at that point for certain stages and that kind of thing. Traveling alone was, she could have, but it was better with me. So we were on the ship and we were in the elevator, just her and I. And anyway, we weren't even talking about anything. And she said to me, which meant it was on her heart for a long time. She said, I might cry here, sorry. I just need to apologize to you because after Dad died, I wasn't the best mom to you I could be. And that was it, like two sentences. And I could respond, Mom, I've forgiven you for that. I understand we are all doing our best. And that was it. But it healed this huge wound. A conversation of 4 sentences long. Yeah, wow.
Wow. Ooh, all right. And it makes me think like imagine a whole lot of things that just saying I'm sorry could fix, right?
Yes,
There's a whole lot of
yes,
conversations that just I'm sorry or I apologize. Just two sentences could fix, a lifetime of resentment and just unsolved problems, right?
yes.
So,
Yeah, there's
wow.
something to tuck in your pocket for every relationship, right?
Right. Wow. Oh, okay. So yes, I love that you were able to share your story. I really do appreciate that. And I believe that people can learn from it as well. Right. And I also love that you got to, speak with your mom at the end of the day. That is what matters, right? You guys got to talk things out. And you mentioned, right, friendship.
Yes, very
Whew.
much so. Yes.
That one, I don't know, but my generation, I don't want to say friendship isn't working, but it's tough, right? It's just a very
Hmm.
few people that have close friends, right?
Hmm.
But the whole idea of friendship now with, social media and everything is tough, right? So you're
Yes.
lucky. You're lucky you
Yes.
have friends.
Sometimes I ask myself, sorry, I'm having a little technical. There we go. Stay. Um, I probably have, I have five women in my life that have been with me most of my life, even those seasons I was talking about, and all this time now. And sometimes I say to God, am I so messed up that I need this many like people I would trust my life with? He's like, not answering that. Just say thank you.
Honestly, I think you should say thank you. I mean, we in this generation, we're looking for just one or two,
Yes.
right?
Start with one. One's good.
One's good. I mean, someone you know that this person will be there for you no matter what. I feel like it's a
Mhm.
blessing, right? It's a
Yeah.
blessing. Whew,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I hope one day I get to that point. I mean, I have siblings, right? They love me. I love them. I don't
That's
need a
good.
friend. Right, that's good actually. I appreciate my
Yeah.
siblings. And yes, the whole
I
idea
think
of friendship.
I think
Right.
that I and my mom taught me this. One of the things she used to say was you have to be a friend to have a friend.
Mm.
That's an English proverb. I don't know where we get it. But anyway, she used to say that often, and uh, it kind of explains everything in that if you want to have good friends, I'm not saying it's easy. When you meet someone, you connect with somebody, and you enjoy their company, you may or may not have a lot in common. You might have some areas
Mm,
of your life that are very much the same, or interests or work or career or whatever. But I think uh, the first step to making those friendships is learning to find someone that you trust. Because I think sometimes I believe that that need for connection, which is really part of community for friends, is a real human need. And when that need kind of gets ignored, it gets stronger and stronger. And sometimes we'll jump in too quick to a friendship, or like, well, just like if you're dating a guy, you jump in, you move too fast, right? But if you
mm,
find someone that you feel is trustworthy and just keep reaching out, and if they reach back, great. And do
mm,
the things that are comfortable. I have which she's really a neighbor acquaintance, and I almost always reach out to her. I'm like, well, but when I see her and she's walking her dog, she always wants to chat. She's very open, and she's starting to share stuff with me, and I'm like, okay. So, and sometimes we'll go to the coffee shop. And so I feel like when I saw her walking the dog recently, she shared something really important. I'm like, okay, we're gonna step this up, and she's gonna come to my house for what I call patio time, which is let's just have like a smoothie, a healthy snack, and sit at my house and just chat. So you take it step by step.
mm. Wow. Okay. Like you said, step by step. And also you said you have to be a friend. Oh, I don't know how you said it. You need to
Yeah, you have
be
to
a
be a,
friend
in
to
order
have
to
a
have a
friend.
friend, yeah, you have to be a friend, right? Yep.
Okay, right. So yes, thank you, Ingrid. And now I want us to dive into your journey, right? Your journey of caregiving. So
Hmm.
caring for your mother inspired your book, right? But
Hmm.
you've shared that caring for your in-laws has been a very different experience. So what has that taught you about the many forms of caregiving?
Mm. Right. So I'm glad that this first lesson is is now behind me and I can talk about it. Otherwise, you'd have a really irritated guest at the moment. Um, so here's the thing. Mom and uh, I helped shepherd her to the end of her life. And this happens all the time in families. Sometimes because I happen to live the closest, um, geographics. And so, but we always were able to talk about personal things. We shared the same faith, which was huge. That's why she was multiple reasons, but relatively easy to do the caregiving because I would see a need, she would recognize the need, but she knows I'm a problem solver, so she would, and she trusted me. So I'd say, well, what if we tried this? And she'd go with it. Easy, solved, easy peasy. My in-laws, who love me like a daughter, truly, are not that open. They have each other. I'll add that too. They have each other. And so what's been really frustrating the last 2 years is that we noticed some decline, even mentally, for my mother-in-law, and some other health things for both of them. And my husband and I are on the same page. He's been busy working, and so I'm kind of the caregiver person, right? With the experience. So I would jump in, and my in-laws do not, will not share very much information at all. And it took me the first year of the last 2 years to go, oh, okay, stop fighting this, Ingrid. Stop fighting it. They are not your mother. They are different people. They might be the same age. They're very different people. Uh, and so what's been challenging is if they're if they feel like they're getting along without any help, I need to keep my hands off of it. But at the same time, I also know, and I feel like I have to go into stealth mode.
Mm,
Oh, so when we go down to their house, right? I'm double checking. Here's an example. My father-in-law, I asked my mother-in-law, she used to be on Facebook a lot, and it helped her stay connected to family, remote family, whatever. And so I asked her, are you on Facebook anymore or right now much? And her answer was a little bit vague. She's like, well, sometimes, if Elle's not on the computer, I'm like, okay. And my father-in-law said, I mentioned an event in our family. I said, "Oh, did you see so and so's post? It was all about this." And he put like a picture up and it was kind of cool and lots of comments and my mother-in-law was kind of clueless. And my father-in-law said, "Remember I printed that out for you and I left it on your desk." So when I left the family gathering to use the restroom, I stopped in her office and looked on her desk to make sure that was actually true. And it was there, but I don't know if she either forgot or she hadn't read it yet or looked at it yet or whatever. I'm like, okay, so I know that part of the story is accurate, that he did print it out and left it for her. Or when we're at their home, I'm making sure that food in the refrigerator is fresh, that it's well stocked, that the cleaning people they have come, that the house is actually clean, that they're doing a good job, they're not getting ripped off. But we don't talk about it. Like I said, I feel like I'm spy, like I go into stealth mode. And I think what will help is that my husband um, has recently retired, and one of his goals is to go down and see them maybe every other week on a weekday, just to see what can I do to help. And he's like a Mr. Fix-It. My father-in-law is not, a broken window or a leak or a whatever. And I think that's going to improve the dynamic a lot because it's him. I think they'll be a little bit more willing, yeah, to open up. So,
right. Okay, so yes, thank you, Ingrid, for that one. There's this saying, my mom used to tell me, I don't know how accurate it is anyways, but like she says, no woman will love you more than your mother. I don't know how she puts it right. But the way they'll
yep,
treat your husband is definitely gonna be a little bit different from how they
that's
treat
right.
you.
Yep,
So
exactly. Exactly.
so I feel like that's what is going on, right? If you were
Yeah, I think so
probably
too.
right. So yes, and I would like to ask, right, many people they become caregivers without any preparations,
Mm,
right? It just happens. So what is something you wish every new caregiver know from like the very beginning?
from the very oh,
Mm,
yeah. Um, in my mind, I'm narrowing it down to maybe three things. Is first of all, especially if you're a daughter, but any son or daughter, first, you alone are not responsible to care for them. It is not only up to you. Even if you're an only child, even if it's a small family, it's not. And that leads me to the second point is when you realize that, accept that you are not the sole person responsible, whatever the dynamics, you there's a team out there. I'm going to grab my book right now to show you the cover. There is a team out there. So this, I don't know if you have this where you live. Um, so we have migrating geese, right? The big old, and once fall comes and the cold weather starts, they migrate. They never migrate one bird at a time. It is always in a group, always. And they fly in a V like this. And the bird in front, there's one bird at the top of the triangle, will fly for a while. When it gets tired of, because it's breaking the path in the air currents, it will drop back and another one will come up front.
Goodness.
You may have to be creative about making your team. Here's a couple of examples for me when I was helping my mom. First of all, she couldn't drive anymore. And she was very active. She had, lunch with friends, uh, things at church. She had cardiac rehab, more things at church. And it wasn't that it was far away, but she couldn't drive. And I came home with her from that doctor's appointment, dropped her off at home. It was a very emotional time for her. It was a privilege that I could be with her when the doctor said that you're not driving ever again. It's because she loved driving. And I came home and I thought, I live an hour and 15 minutes away. How in the world am I going to run my life and my business and everything else? Get her to the grocery store, get her to these like multiple places every week. And the first thing I did is I called our home church where she and my dad were for decades and that I grew up in. I called the church. The secretary knew me. She knew my mom. And I told her, I just need a team to like take her places. And she said, Oh, don't worry about it. I know exactly the person to call. She can set it up and she'll be in touch with all the other people that are willing to drive your mom places. Done. Check. That group of people became part of my team. I had no worries. And my mother loved it because she had, every time she had to go somewhere, she had an extra person to talk to. It made her day. So that team expanded. So then I realized when she couldn't grocery shop, this is pre COVID, there was a delivery service called Peapod, and you could order your groceries online and then they would deliver them and you'd pay by credit card. So that was one of those moments I said, Mom, what if we got on the phone? I'll put your order in because she didn't have a computer. I'll put it in online. We'll figure out a time. You write down when they're coming to deliver the groceries. I'll let you know what the total is, and you can just send me a check or pay me back or whatever. And at first, she was real hesitant because it was different. Well, it worked beautifully. And by the next week, she called me, which was not normal. I usually called her. And she said, So when are we going to do our grocery order again? Oh, gotcha.
Wow. Okay.
So those are just two little illustrations of team, right? And you may have to think outside the box. Remember your parents' community. Who are their immediate neighbors? Are they good? Are they friends? Do they talk about them? Or they're a group of friends at church or whatever. And sometimes we forget that they have a community. And most people want, maybe this is my third thing, right? So realize you don't have to do it yourself. Get a team. Remember that as you do that, most people want to help, but they don't know what you need. Let's say uh, your parent has fallen and has broken a hip, and they're done with rehab and they're home, but they still need some help or supervision is just not quite safe or whatever. And you talk to a friend and they'll say, Well, just let me know how I can help. They mean it, but you have to decide, okay, what actually do I need? Do they need? Do they just need someone to, they're in their rehabilitation? Maybe they can walk with a walker, or maybe they just need somebody to hold somebody's arm to go get the mail. Ask one of the neighbors, Hey, could you do that for my mom? And people have the privilege of saying no, but if I think people really do want to help.
Mm, wow. Oh, like you said, teamwork, right? Teamwork.
Mhm.
And also remember your parents have a community, right? So there are actually people out there who are willing to also help, right?
Right.
And one thing about people who are new to like caregiving, they feel like they need to do everything alone, right? And this causes burnout at a particular point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it leads to burnout, and then you tend to, forget yourself, right? Abandon your health and all, and just focus on that of your parent. But we need to remember that if you're okay, then you can, work better, right? So you need to
Absolutely.
prioritize yourself. Wow.
Absolutely. That's the self-care is a real thing. And that was taking care of ourselves. That was a hurdle for me. And some of from my Christian background, you put God first and you put others second and then you put your self last. The problem is the self never even comes up.
Mm,
And if you're caregiving, it can happen like that, depending on what your parent needs. If it's a kind of a shocker, a serious illness, or an accident, or whatever, um, the list of tasks that need to be done, it will never get smaller. The list of things that have to be done will never get smaller. But if we, and all that trifecta of thinking we have to do it ourselves, mixed in there is thinking we have to do it perfectly. No, I, you don't. And this is why, um, but if you get to the level of burnout, you're no good to anybody. Because if you make your own self sick, guess what? You you like literally sick, like I don't know, always catching the flu or whatever it is. You probably shouldn't even be around your parents. Guess what? You just ruined helping them because you're not caring for your own self. Um, yeah, yeah, and you don't have to do it perfectly. That I was going somewhere with that. I knew I was.
mm,
The subtitle, lovingly letting our parents go. Uh, the lovingly is in there because we also can get very absorbed with the practical tasks that have to happen. I just saw a post on Facebook the other day by an older woman from my home church, and it was something like the greatest delight for me with my adult children is simply spending time with them and hearing what is happening in their lives. And that was one other regret I had with mom was I'm a planner, I'm a check it off the list kind of person. So we'd have all these things that I would go down and visit her to get done. And then I needed to get out of there and get home and get back to work. What she Now sometimes you have to prioritize, right? If it's bills that have to get paid and she needs help, okay, we got to do that. But I'm sorry that I never just spent a little bit more time. I wasn't aware of it. I was so overwhelmed with tasks, and mom was not that sick that I didn't just sit and visit with her as much as she would have liked.
mm. Wow. Oh, okay. So, Ingrid, I would like to
A few
right.
things. Yeah, there's a few things.
Yeah.
Get your team. You don't have to do it perfectly, and you really are not the only one. I don't care if you're an only child. There are more people who are willing to help.
Yes, exactly. Right. Oh, okay. So yes, thank you, Ingrid. This has been amazing, actually, and I got to learn a whole lot, right? And
Good.
right, I've spoken with a whole lot of guests that were once caregivers. I learned that caregiving is not just physical. Sometimes it takes emotional toll on people, especially the caregivers themselves, right? I
Mm,
even learned that sometimes the caregivers fall sick, right?
yes.
And the whole attention is on who they are caring for. People do not really take time to, think about the caregivers themselves, Right. So there's a whole lot of things to caregiving, and I feel like it's really underrated. I feel like people need to, talk more about caregiving. Right. So yeah, I would like to say kudos to you, and thanks for also letting us know that we don't have to do it alone. Right. I feel like that is really important. We need a community. There are always people who are willing to help. We don't have to get too absorbed, and we should be more present, right, with this whole
Yes.
caregiving thing, so we can get to connect with, our parents and us ourselves, particularly.
Yes. That's a good
So,
sum. You summed it up perfectly.
right. So, yes, thank you, Ingrid. And finally,
Mm.
I'd like for you to talk to someone out there, right? Because, grief is something everyone experiences eventually. So, what have your own experience taught you about navigating loss in a healthy way?
That is a great question because, and I think it answers the question that you didn't actually state, but why is it that we don't talk about this stage of life?
Mm.
Why is it there are some very practical reasons, but I think that the hidden reason is when our parents start failing, aging, needing help, we all, them and us, we all become aware of the fact that, oh, this is the last stage. And after this comes dying, and that they're gone forever. They're away from this world and this life. Whatever your views are on the afterlife. We all know it, and many of us are afraid of it. My mother was not because of her faith. Um, it helped everything. But anyway, I think that's the hidden reason that it isn't talked about. And there's some, like I said, practical things of some of the issues are very, very personal. Medical things, hygiene things, money, finance things. Very, very personal. Grief. So your question was handling grief, healthy ways to handle grief. Well, I'll give one answer from when I lost my dad and one after mom passed away. So, as I said, the Christian church was central to our family's weekly life and routine. Okay, and so I was in high school and we had a youth group at church. And one of the leaders was also a farmer, and he and his wife. And he knew my dad, being a farmer in the same region. He knew my dad, and he very often would volunteer to give me a ride home from youth group, and he'd talk about my dad. It was a trusted person who knew him, and that's something, this is a cultural thing. If you're trying to help someone else who's grieving, don't be afraid of talking about the person who's passed. Don't be afraid of talking about the deceased person, however you knew them, or maybe ask that the one that's left, "Oh, what do you remember about your dad?" Or, you know, when, of course, Father's Day or special holidays, whatever. That was a huge comfort to me. And then when mom passed away, I think it was just, well, there was one very practical thing, and the other is just letting it be okay that certain memories, certain moments, certain experiences that you're going through currently will trigger a grief or, oh, mom's not here. Or I would call mom and tell her, oh, I can't. I can't call mom to tell her about X, Y, and Z. And those moments are unpredictable. and to be okay with the grief. I have a whole chapter in the book that about mental health and about grieving that my good friend wrote, and she has a lifetime of mental health. That was her career experience in helping people, and I was pretty surprised to hear her say that you can't even predict how you yourself will grieve, never mind even your siblings. Even if you're close and you think you know them and you know their personality, when it's the your parent that goes, especially in grief in general, but especially your parent, uh, it's anybody's guess what will trigger a memory, how long that will take, how a person will respond. And so anyway, to back to, I think what was healthy for me, and my husband was a big part of this, was giving myself a little time right at the beginning to just slow down. The house doesn't have to be cleaned out right now. I can wait on that. I don't have to like overbook my schedule. I could just do my normal work and take the time that I needed. And sometimes that was in my prayer time, and I would just, something would come to my mind and I would just cry. And that's okay. And then you move on. Now, the one thing my friend Valerie mentions is if you can't move on, if you're stuck, and what that means. But the practical, and I didn't intend this, the practical way of grieving for my mom was she and I had started writing her memoirs, writing her stories. It's called Cellophane Farm. But we didn't get very far. But she wanted it. I promised her I would finish it, that I would help her do that. So she was gone, and I finished writing that book. And in doing that, I learned, and having to take her 87 years of life, get it in a format that not just our family, but other people would enjoy reading and benefit from reading. I learned more about who she was than I ever knew when she was alive. Um, which, like I said, when I started on that journey, that was not my intention. Some people start writing something like that as a cathartic, which is good. That's a thing. This was like, this was Ingrid on, you know what? If I said I was going to write it for her, I'm going to finish writing it for her. And this is hard work. But I really dug in, and what I found, to wrap up what you mentioned about having purpose, is that my mother never gave up on her dreams, no matter what life threw at her. Example, she had always wanted to be a school teacher. She didn't have an education past high school. And then she got married, which was one of her dreams, and she had kids, which was one of her dreams. Um, and she married my dad, et cetera, et cetera. And she taught Sunday school class at the church, first and second grade girls, for 72 years.
Mm.
72 years she taught Sunday school. And that was her expression of teaching. She's like, well, I don't have a degree. I don't have the time. I can't, I can't be a teacher in a school, but you know what? I can do this. And she loved it. So finding that purpose, and it doesn't have to look like what the world tells us is a big, uh, dramatic thing. But she kept living her dreams in the ways that she could.
Mm. Okay. So yes, thank you, Ingrid. And I'd like to say thank you for sharing your story with us, right? And personally, and you mentioned it earlier, there's actually, I don't think there's a manual to grief, right? You can't tell people, you can't tell
Right.
people how to grieve, right? Everybody would
No.
react differently.
Yes, they
So,
do.
hmm. Wow. Okay. I don't, like I said earlier, I don't think there's a manual to grief, but at the end of the day, doing what works for you is fine, right?
Yes.
Just do what makes you happy at the end of everything. Right. So yes, thank you, Ingrid. This has been amazing, honestly. And I believe people who are listening right now are going to learn a whole lot from our conversation, right? From, purpose to, tricks on, caregiving, basically. So
Yes,
yes.
right.
Right. Okay. So it brings me to the final segment of my podcast. I call it the rapid fire segment. You could either answer with a word or a phrase starting now. Okay. So
Okay.
what is one word that describes your 20s?
A little bit scary.
Okay. All right. So would you prefer coffee or tea?
Coffee, a pot and a half a day. Yes.
All right. So what is a book that has deeply influenced your life?
The Bible.
Hmm. All
Absolutely.
right. Okay. So what is one family tradition you cherish?
I think it's remembering birthdays. And
Oh.
my mother taught me that too.
Wow. Okay. Shout out to your mom, by the way.
That's right.
Exactly. And finally, what is one piece of advice every family should hear?
Keep communicating.
Mm.
No, no one does it perfectly. Just keep trying. Keep trying to communicate and connect.
Right, exactly. So yes, thank you, Ingrid. This has been amazing. And yeah, before you go, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and also check out your book too? Right.
Absolutely. So, you'll find me on the website becominganorphan.com. It's part of my bigger website, but don't let that put you off. Becoming an Orphan comes right up. There are all sorts of, besides being the able to buy the book, and you can leave me a note if you'd like me to sign it for you. Is there, as well as information about support groups and other things, other tips and pointers. Um, if you can get the book Becoming an Orphan, a Caregiver's Guide, wherever you get books, because it's a print on demand. I love Barnes and Noble, but you can get it anywhere. And lastly, if you want to send me an email at Ingrid at dropped pencil, Ingrid at dropped pencil, like you dropped your pencil.com. I will put you on my list for my newsletter, which is not very, I haven't figured out how often it is. It's it's called Ing's Inspirations, and it always has a layer for caregivers, but it also has a layer for anybody. What's percolating in my head, and that can be an encouragement. So Ingrid at Dropped Pencil, and I'll get you on that email list.
All right. And I'm going to put the links in the show notes so it's easily accessible for listeners. Right. And to my listeners, I want to say thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone you think might need this and also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Ingrid. Do
You're welcome.
you have a wonderful day.